Good evening and welcome to the Pastor's Study, Faith Community Church in Geneva. Tonight I'm going to be in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, and I want to talk about the joy of the Lord. The evidence of God in your life is the joy of the Lord. The evidence for other people looking at your life and your walk with the Lord is the joy of the Lord. And so I want to talk about that in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, 6 and 8. There are diversities of the same operation, but it's the same God who works all in all. So God's working in you an operation. What's He doing? But the manifestation of the Spirit is given to every man to profit. So you receive a manifestation of the Spirit of God. So what gift is God blessed you with? What gift does God speak to you in order to speak through you to others in order to have the joy of the Lord? Verse 8. For to one is given by the Spirit the word of wisdom, to another the word of knowledge by the same Spirit. And so when we look at the word of knowledge, it's a manifestation that teaches faith. So you receive this word that you know is of God, and sometimes you don't know it's of God. You have to look back and say, oh, that's right, the Lord said, and you quote the word of knowledge. And generally it'll be real short. It'll be a short saying, but as you think about it, it unfolds the value, the wisdom, the depth, and it can give you understanding. It can establish you in something, or it can even direct you because God cares about you that much. And so with the word of knowledge, it can also form a revelation, whether you know it or not. It's not like you receive a vision and you know all this thing's going to unfold. No, it's just a short word of knowledge. But as you respond to it, you see the revelation of Christ in it for you. So when we understand, closely related to the word of knowledge is the word of wisdom, and that gives more understanding. The word of knowledge is more factual until you think about it and it unfolds. The word of wisdom is just kind of unfolding as you think about or receive that. And I want to talk about a word of knowledge I had for Isla's funeral, sorry about that, Isla's wedding this past week. And they had 21 people in the wedding, and it went real well. It was well organized. And at the end, the two sons of each mother were to walk back down and escort the mothers out like a typical wedding. But it was so hectic and busy with 21 people at the door that for a while they forgot to come get the mother. But the night before, now that's on Saturday, Friday night, I was thinking about the rehearsal. I thought that really went well. I mean, for that to be so organized, and we went through it twice, but the thought came to me, if they forget the mothers, then escort them out. And I thought, well, you know, they practice that. Everything's going to go well. Well, sure enough, the wedding comes and everything works well, and they all march out, and we're standing there waiting, and I realize nobody's coming back in the door. So I walk over and I give my arm to Nancy, and she takes it, and I give my arm to the groom's mother, and she takes it, and I start walking out. And the whole audience start applauding. Now, why did they applaud? Because they saw something that was happy, something that was nice, whatever you want to call it, something that was cute, something that was thoughtful. But what was it? It was the joy of the Lord. Everybody was happy. So the proof of the word of knowledge the night before was of God, and I didn't even know that it was a word of knowledge. It was once I thought about, well, yeah, I received that out of the blue. I wasn't thinking about the wedding at that moment. And often in our lives, we can look back and realize, wait a minute, God told me that, God said that, God showed me that. I realize it's God. So in our life, we can receive words of knowledge and wisdom and not even know it's God. But the more we're in tune with God, and I often know and generally know when I get a word of knowledge, and I'll write it down, and when I'm given a message, I'll ring the bell. Hello, this is a word of knowledge. This is from God. If it's from God, you should be writing it down. If you're coming to church to hear God, then here's a word. So the evidence is the joy of the Lord. Now I want to read in John chapter 15. In John chapter 15, 10 through 12. And this is Jesus speaking. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, even as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. These things I've spoken unto you, that your joy might remain in you, and that your joy might be full. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. So the commandment of God, as we obey God, the joy of the Lord is the evidence, is the result of hearing God, obeying God, and receiving the joy of the Lord. And so I'd like to encourage you with that. When you realize God has told you something, shown you something, go ahead and tell somebody, I got a word of knowledge. This is what it was. This is what I said, and look what happened. Because that's a testimony of God working in your life. And it might be something small like that, or it could be something that you don't even know is ministering to that Christian. Wait a minute. If God can speak to him or her like that, God will speak to me like that. And so you open yourself up. See, the joy of the Lord is not something to just merely give us and make us happy, but it's also to minister life and to others that are listening. So I have two words of knowledge, or one's the word of knowledge and one's a quote from another man. One is, who was glad that you were in their lives this past week? Who was glad that you were in their lives this past week? Well, I know Nancy was, and also the groom's mother. I got a kick, and I don't know how many times I've chuckled over it. When I put my arm out and Nancy stood up, she looks at the audience and said, "They forgot me," and everybody started laughing. I put my arm out for the groom's mother, and she takes it, and we start walking up the aisle, and she tells somebody over there, "They forgot me," and so everybody was laughing. It was a happy moment. Why? Because Friday night God said, if they forget the mothers, escort them out. So when you hear God and you obey God, the joy of the Lord will be there. Now I also have a quote from Norman Vincent Peale. When you pray for anyone, you tend to modify your attitude toward that person. When you pray for anyone, you tend to modify your attitude toward that person. And I was praying for the entire wedding party, and certainly with Isla, because it was her big day. But because of that word of knowledge, I ended up praying more for Nancy. I prayed for the groom's mother, and I never even really thought about praying for the mothers. But what happened? It modified my attitude toward them. That was an important time in that wedding. That was an important time. The mothers were being honored. Now stop and think about that. God gave me a word of knowledge to obey, to honor, and show respect for the mothers. And so when they were escorted out, they not only got escorted out, they got an applause by everybody in the audience. That's God. God loves you. God strengthens you and builds you. And as we hear him and obey him, the joy of the Lord's there. Now, it might be exciting like that, or it might be something just you and God knows. But you know that you're satisfied. Why? Because God loves you. So what am I going to say? Love, love, love. Let God show you his love. Pass it on to others, and God bless you this evening.